Hey guys, once again here bringing on Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so we're going to talk about this little mini 10th anniversary roadmap, I guess you could call it. That's what I've been referring to it as. That was shown on the live stream broadcast for the 10th anniversary, where they of course revealed the Dokkan Fest Vegito, the Carnival Super Saiyan 4 Goku, and Blue Evolution Vegeta. They showed us this image, which of course, as you can see, has a bunch of empty slots. It's like 19, I think, of still empty. And these are all the characters that are going to release during the 10th anniversary. And interestingly enough, they did mention in the live stream that this would include the Super EZA'S and EZA'S as well. So obviously we know with the general format of the anniversary, we get a free-to-play farmable LR that by the end of the anniversary ends up having an EZA. We normally get at least one free-to-play unit as well, so I'm assuming that that will be included here, like a farmable one. Obviously last year for the anniversary there was the Scouter Frieza, who was pretty bad. Of course the free-to-play actual anniversary LR was the Pajama Beerus. So I assume that both of those will be included here and not just the LR. And then, yeah, all EZAs and Super EZAs are also going to be included on this list. So we know that a very minimum, we know there's going to be 3 other LRs, the summonable ones for part 2. There's going to be the farmable free-to-play LR. Now, I would assume as well, because obviously Vegito being the Dokkan Fest, that his banner is going to have a banner unit. So I do wonder if they will include that on here as well, because that's something that I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, but that does mean that, like, potentially, if they're talking about all the new characters that are coming out, 2 of the slots on this board will be taken by the 2 side banner units from the Dokkan Fest banners. So I guess that will be interesting to see whether or not that is the case, right? But because remember, Broly last year had the Int Golden Frieza, Beast Gohan had the Krillin and 18, so I guess we will have to wait and see. But today we are going to talk about some ideas for who could fill these slots. Now, remember that if we're talking about EZAs and Super EZAs being in the mix, it does kind of fill up some of these slots already. So we're going to talk about GT first, because obviously we're starting from the top left corner. And so we will start from there. I'm going to have to refer back to this image, but since I have to change the view on the recorder, I probably won't go back to the image actually in the video. But if we click over to like GT Heroes, obviously there's one more slot for GT. Now, obviously it could be a GT boss character, because it is just specifying GT and not GT Heroes. But the thing is, before we even start really speculating about who a new unit can be, the big thing that you have to remember is, whilst it hasn't been 100% confirmed, and I've been saying this for a while so that people don't get, overly disappointed if it doesn't happen. But obviously we're all expecting the 7-year LRs to EZA during this anniversary, because of course for the last couple of anniversaries now, they have been EZAing these previous anniversary characters. So of course everybody just assumes that they are going to do that again. And of course that would mean that the LR Super Saiyan 4s, you can see here the physical boys, and of course the Tech LR Gods, that would mean that they are going to both EZA during this celebration. So of course that means if there's only one slot available on that image for GT, and they have said already that the image is going to include EZAs and Super EZAs, then realistically we have to assume that that one extra slot for GT that we have not yet seen is just going to be taken up by the EZA for the LR Super Saiyan 4s and not by a new character. So straight away that slot for GT essentially will just be taken up by the LR Super Saiyan 4s, right? So then underneath that we have one slot for the OG Dragon Ball. Now, this is a big thing in the community. Like, there's a lot of people who are big fans of OG Dragon Ball that really want OG Dragon Ball to get more representation in Dokkan. You know, a lot of people will say, like, it's usually some of the younger fans, people that have probably never watched OG Dragon Ball, or just people that are more into the like fusions and Super Saiyan Blue and 3 and all that kind of like crazy shenanigans. There's a lot of people that act like OG Dragon Ball isn't hype, but you have to remember that, like, when the Int Kid Goku Dokkan Fest came out, which is a few years ago, that was like the fastest JP ever hit top grossing for like a normal Dokkan Fest release, because OG Dragon Ball is very popular in Japan even still. So OG Dragon Ball is something that I do think is worthy of being involved in like a bigger celebration. The only problem is, and I talked about this on the stream earlier today, is that when it comes to buffing like the team, because you got to remember that Dragon Ball Saga as it stands currently is kind of like a dead team, right? Like Roshi's fairly recent release and he can be good. Path to Power Kid Goku's aged out. Obviously the old one has aged out completely. Bulma is kind of aged out now. She was starting to age out completely and then got a little bit of a resurgence with the physical trio by giving her so much extra support, but she's kind of aged out at this point. We've had some really good free-to-play like characters like the Krillin, Goku and Bulma, and then like the World Tournament LR Grandpa Gohan. But like realistically, this team is just not very good. So if one of, let's say it was the Carnival LR, if one of the Carnival LRs for part 2 was an OG Dragon Ball, like Kid Goku with 200% for Dragon Ball Saga, like the Dragon Ball Saga team would still not be very good. Just by getting one new character that is a new leader, and obviously would almost by default go straight away to being the best unit on that team, the rest of the team itself would still not be very good. And that is the thing, as we'll mention multiple times, and I've already mentioned like with the GT part, because they've told us that these are going to be the slots for like the EZA'S and the new units and everything all together, that means that there's not going to be any other OG Dragon Ball stuff. So that means that Goku, say it was a Kid Goku, I'm just going by that assumption, it could be Demon King Piccolo, it could be anything else, but let's say it was a Goku. If he was the Dokkan, he can't be the Dokkan Fest, otherwise it means his banner unit would have to be a non-OG Dragon Ball character, which wouldn't make a lot of sense. And it means that there's not going to be any OG Dragon Ball characters getting EZA'S during the anniversary to help buff that team even more. So unfortunately, it is kind of looking like, you know, one of the big releases being a Dragon Ball Saga character in this roadmap, I think is kind of unlikely, just because the team itself would still not be particularly good. The only thing we could potentially see that would be quite good, again, we were talking about this on the stream, is like if it was a Kid Goku, but as one of the Carnival LRs, but his leader skill was like Dragon Ball Seekers potentially instead of DB Saga, because obviously we've seen like the Daima characters are on there, like that could still be a relatively good team. But unfortunately, because that image only has the one slot for OG Dragon Ball, I think it's very unlikely that we're going to get anything super crazy. So my thought is that the OG Dragon Ball card is either going to be the farmable free-to-play LR, or it's just going to be an EZA. But when you think about some of these characters, in terms of like characters that are not like super recent, that don't have an EZA, I guess Path to Power Kid Goku would be pretty good. When did he actually come out? It was 2022 on JP. So yeah, there's obviously still a lot of like 2021 characters that need EZAs. So this guy getting an EZA now feels like it would be quite early, and I'm not sure. Like a Kid Goku fits the theme in terms of like wanting to be the strongest, which is, you know, the kind of overall theme. But I feel it feels like him getting his EZA here would be very early. At least he would be useful on a bunch of other teams, right? Like being on Kamehameha, Pure Saiyans, like providing that damage reduction. Like his EZA would be really good. So since there's only one OG Dragon Ball slot, I feel like it's either going to be the free-to-play LR or maybe this guy getting an EZA would be kind of cool. But as there's only one slot for OG Dragon Ball, then it's not going to be anything too crazy in my opinion. So the next thing we have on the roadmap is 2 slots for Saiyan Saga. Now this one, I think this one's pretty straightforward to guess. We've talked about this in the lead up to the anniversary. I was kind of speculating that they could end up being the EZAs that we got during the countdown celebration, but I think those 2 slots will be taken up for the EZAs with STR Kaioken Goku and the Tech Giant Ape Vegeta. Because again, with there only being 2 slots, I'm not sure if we would see a new release for like a Saiyan Saga character. I mean, I guess with the theme in mind, like the whole Goku versus Vegeta, like Kamehameha Gallic Gun Clash kind of thing, does kind of fit in with that theme. But obviously, I'm not sure if we would then be dedicating part 2 of the anniversary, 2 of the 3 LRs, to being that Goku and Vegeta clash. Especially now, as we have seen that with the part 1 characters, they are all from different parts and different arcs and different sagas, right? There aren't 2 from the same bit in the part 1 selections. So I don't think they would then do that for the part 2. I mean, they could, obviously, we don't know 100%, but I think when it comes to Saiyan Saga, it's got to be the EZA'S for these 2. They were the part 2 LRs for the 7th anniversary, and as we've already discussed, we are all expecting the part 1 LRs from the 7th anniversary to get their EZA'S during the celebration, so it would make perfect sense for the part 2 LRs from that celebration to get their EZA'S this time around as well. So I think the 2 Saiyan Saga slots, in my opinion, I feel like it's a shoe-in, but as we've said many times before in the past, and I'm sure we'll say many times again, nothing is ever 100% with Dokkan, so you never know. But the 2 Saiyan Saga slots, I think, will be for these guys getting their EZA. There's also 2 slots for the Planet Namek saga, and again, I feel like this is a very similar situation. The only thing that really makes a lot of sense to me here for these slots is going to be the EZA for AGL Full Power Frieza and Int Namek Goku. Because if we take a look at the other characters, we talked about this a bit with the Vegeta celebration and how the Namek saga team kind of got dealt a rough hand. Like, it got a couple of releases and a couple of EZAs, but never really got like a major buff to make the team like really, really strong. But if we look at like, especially all the LRs, like all of these characters either have EZAs or only recently came out, right? Like Gohan and Piccolo. Ginyu is a little bit older, but still way too recent for an LR, for an EZA. And then when we look down at the like TURs, the only EZAs we really have that we need still are like random like banner general pool units like this AGL Frieza, the physical Kaioken Goku. So realistically, the 2 slots for Namek Saga, unless we're getting 2 new Namek cards, which again, like considering the picks that we saw in part 1, as they're going to seemingly be spread across the sagas, those 2 slots could go to a Dokkan Fest, let's say like Super Saiyan Goku from Namek, and then his banner unit, which could be anything, right? Krillin, Gohan, Piccolo, all 3 together. But I think the 2 most likely choices, if there's going to be 2 slots for the Namek Saga, is going to be the EZAs for Full Power Frieza and the Namek Goku. Obviously, let me know what you guys think down below, especially for these picks, whether you think they will be new characters or EZAs. But that's the tricky thing, right? As we've been told that the list is going to include both, then obviously we just don't know until we see what is eventually revealed, I guess. So after that, we have 4 slots for the Majin Buu saga. Now, that's kind of understandable considering how big the category is and how many units are on there. And we already know that we're getting a Super Vegito who is the Dokkan Fest for part 1. So as I said at the very beginning, it is very possible that one of those 4 slots for Majin Buu saga is just going to be taken up by the banner unit for Vegito. Because again, they did say it was all the characters from the anniversary, including EZAs. It seems weird that they would not include the banner unit in that, right? So I'm going to assume that the banner unit counts as one of these slots. So that's a slot for the Buu saga taken up straight away. Now, Buu saga, of course, has recently gotten a ton of buffs, a ton of new characters, a ton of EZAs, like all that stuff. But there's a couple of things that we were speculating about potentially seeing that we have not gotten yet. And I think a big one, especially with a release of a new unit that's fusing into Super Vegito, would be the Super EZA for AGL Super Vegito, because we already have the Super EZA for Tech Gotenks, and in terms of when they released, part of the mono 70% lead meta, Gotenks actually came out after Super Vegito. And obviously, you know, we know now with like big EZAs and stuff like that, they're more than happy to do ones that fit the theme of the celebration without caring as much whether it's chronologically, like whether that unit should be getting one straight away or not. But this just makes the case more likely that Super Vegito could indeed get one, because the unit that came out after him has already gotten one. So Super Vegito taking up one of those slots would definitely be very interesting. Now, of course, so far we haven't seen any extreme characters mentioned or brought up or anything for the anniversary so far. Obviously, none of the 3 headliners for part 1 are extreme units. So I think something that would be very cool alongside this Super Vegito, Super EZA, if we were to indeed get it here, would be to get the Super EZA for Int Buuhan as well. Because, of course, he was also from that mono 70% lead meta. He's the guy that fights Super Vegito. We know we're getting Super Vegito as a new card already anyway. It definitely would be nice to get at least some buffs for the Extreme team. Now, obviously, when it comes to Extreme, and especially Extreme Majin Buu Saga, the last actual proper release that we got towards the end of 2024 was a new Buuhan. So, of course, he is going to be sharing the same name with that Tech Dokkan Fest. But firstly, I know a lot of people wouldn't have summoned for him anyway. But secondly, they could very easily make this guy a unit that is designed around giving support. And then even if you're running the Tech Buuhan on the team, you can either have this guy on the opposite rotation or just floating. And then they can still work together. Obviously, when Tech Buuhan goes into his domain and becomes Super Buu, then of course for that few turns they are not the same name and they can link. So there's definitely ways that this guy can still work on that Extreme Buu team even if you have Tech Buuhan. But yeah, I think this guy getting a Super EZA alongside the Vegito is definitely a good shout. And then of course we still have one extra slot. Now, bearing in mind, I don't think one of the part 2 headliners will be Buu Saga if we've already got one from part 1, but that is of course a possibility. But looking into other units that could potentially EZA or Super EZA, if we take a look at the LRs, there's not a lot really left in terms of these older ones that need EZAs. I think Super Buu is a bit too early, although that would be super hype for this AGL Super Buu to get an EZA. Majin Vegeta Super EZA would be very interesting. Obviously, he would be the first summonable LR to get a Super EZA. He was one of the original batch of summonable EZA characters. I think was he like the 3rd one to release or 2nd one on JP? I can't remember, because the first one was Int Gohan, and then I think on JP it was this guy, and then was it Tech Zamasu and Rose, and then Broly came out on Global and then came out on JP. I'm pretty sure Broly came out on Global before Vegeta, but I think Vegeta was the 2nd, I want to say the 2nd or 3rd one to release on Global and the 2nd one on JP. But either way, we obviously haven't had a Super EZA for a summonable character yet, but I think that would be very, very cool. I don't think we'd get a new Majin Vegeta as like a summonable character yet, but obviously this would be, I think, a very hype Super EZA, especially if they did make him very, very strong. And then, of course, the only other options, really, you've got like the free-to-play Hercule. That would be an interesting choice, I guess. Previous anniversary LR, we have the free-to-play Goten and Trunks. I don't think they're going to be Super EZAing the free-to-play anniversary LRs this early, though. So that one extra slot for the Buu Saga, I feel like that could be a bit of a wild card. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. We do also have 3 slots on that image for Android/Cell Saga. So this is another interesting one, especially because one of the things we speculated about before the anniversary began and we were leaning towards like a Kamehameha theme is like a new Gohan versus Cell. Now, of course, again, now that we know the layout of part 1 and the fact that none of these units are related to each other, it does make me more skeptical that we would get a Gohan and a Cell. But it'd be interesting to see what they could do, because for Android/Cell Saga, there's obviously, again, a very limited selection of units that could get like EZAs or Super EZAs. Now, technically, the future Gohan and Trunks are obviously on Android/Cell Saga, so an EZA for them would be really good. I think they're one of the few LRs remaining on the category that don't have one. The Tech Goku and Gohan, really, really good as well. Now, Int Gohan, we already mentioned when we brought up Majin Vegeta. Him getting a Super EZA would be pretty cool. Because again, like if we're going by JP's schedule of release, he was the first summonable LR. So him being the first summonable LR to get a Super EZA would obviously make a lot of sense. And that could fit quite nicely as one of the Android/Cell Saga characters. But other than that, like especially if we look at the TURs, the tech androids, they're in line for an EZA. In fact, I think they're one of the next units in line in terms of chronological order that still need an EZA. So the tech androids getting one would be pretty good. Be kind of fitting actually for like the tech androids, because they are the future androids, tech androids, and then future Gohan to get an EZA in the same celebration. I think that would be pretty cool. And then yeah, Gohan for a super EZA I think is definitely a strong idea as well. So Android / Cell Saga I think we'll mainly see EZAs. If we get a new character, I could see a Gohan, but considering the theme, I mean, I guess the strongest, like, second to no one kind of thing, I guess it makes sense for the Cell Saga to be talking about Gohan. So a new Gohan would make sense, at least for the theme. But I do feel like Android / Cell Saga is more likely to be EZAs than anything else. But I guess we will see. So I didn't mean to bring this back up on the screen, but we got 3 slots for movies next. Now, 2 of those slots straight away. I know a lot of people really want to see the Super EZA for STR Gogeta, and then obviously Int Janemba from the movie bosses category, because it's just movies, right? So it could be movie heroes or movie bosses. So Super Gogeta and Int Janemba, those 2 Super EZAs would go super hard for the anniversary for sure. The first anniversary units getting their Super EZAs, I think that would be really, really good. Now, obviously, we have a Super Vegito releasing as the Dokkan Fest on the Part 1 banner, so a new Super Gogeta would certainly be interesting for Part 2. The thing is, as we were discussing this morning, is that if, you know, with the Vegito in Part 1, I know a lot of Fusion fans, we wanted to see a new Gogeta, but the issue that we talked about with the slots on that board is that, for example, I really wanted to see a new standalone Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, but as there's only one spare GT slot on the board, and that is going to be taken up by the LR Super Saiyan 4's EZA, if they are indeed getting it, then of course that means no Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, like new, for Part 2. So if we are getting a Gogeta in Part 2, that only leads 2 options, which is the Dragon Ball Super Gogeta, like a standalone blue Gogeta potentially, but we got that summonable Super Saiyan Gogeta that goes blue last year, and whilst nothing is impossible, and they absolutely could do that, I don't feel like we'll get 2 summonable blue Gogetas for like 2 anniversaries in a row. So then Gogeta for Part 2 only really leaves the option of a new Super Gogeta, which is still perfectly viable. Like, we haven't had a standalone Super Gogeta release since the Int one. Like, we've literally got the Int one and the STR one. And then, of course, we have for the LRs, the tech ones that fuse and the physical ones that fuse from the 3-year. But we don't have a standalone Super Gogeta for a long time. And the interesting thing is, obviously, all of his animations basically have been used because, let's face it, he barely does anything in the Fusion Reborn movie anyway. But, of course, the anniversary is the perfect opportunity, as we've seen in the past, for these characters to get Dokkan exclusive animations. Like, imagine if, I know people would probably be disappointed if we didn't get the Soul Punisher, or at least as it is in the movie. But imagine if, like, he has some interesting 12-key super that's like a combo of the Punisher drive thing that he does, and then maybe has like the flip kick in it or something like that, I don't know. But then his 18-key super is a completely original Dokkan animation, but that still involves the Soul Punisher in some way. I think that would be really cool. But yeah, Super Gogeta could definitely be on the table for movies. But remember, the slot is literally just Dragon Ball movies. And so it could be anything from any of the movies. Now, I think the Broly stuff is obviously a bit tapped out at the moment because we've gotten that whole worldwide celebration formed around it. I guess, again, going with like the Gohan theme, we do have the Tech LR Gohan that could get an EZA. We know that the Int Goku and Piccolo had that data in the files a while back with their updated EZA stuff, so we know an EZA is coming for them at some point, but that was quite a while ago now. So realistically, it's one of those things, every celebration where they could be a relevant EZA now, we kind of have to include them in the speculation because we know it is going to happen at some point. But this happened before, like, the worldwide, like before the future worldwide with Vegito Blue and Zamasu. There was the future Android EZA stuff in the files, and then they didn't get theirs for ages after that. So just because that was in the files a little while ago now doesn't mean that it's going to be necessarily coming up as part of the anniversary. And then realistically, in terms of movies, I mean, in terms of could we see any other superhero stuff, a standalone Orange Piccolo would be awesome, but I don't think really fits the theme overall of the celebration. Something that would be kind of cool, I mean, I don't know how, if it's too early at this point, but like EZA'S for the Gammas would be kind of interesting. But like, again, like they don't really fit the theme, even though they fit into the movies like slots, they don't really fit like the theme of the celebration. They came out late 2022 as well, so they're not really that old at this point. So for movie heroes, I definitely think we could see a new Super Gogeta. We also, of course, have the possibility of the EZA'S for AGL, Pycon, and Tech Janemba, which I know are two highly anticipated EZA'S. I mean, we got the Goku and Kid Buu EZA'S to end off last year, and if I remember rightly, like they were the New Year Dual Dokkan Fest that came out after Janemba and Pycon. So they've ended up EZAing before them. So Janemba and Pycon, you'd have to imagine, are definitely on that list for getting an EZA soon. So they could fill up 2 slots and obviously would be relevant to a new Super Gogeta if we were to get one. So the 3 slots for movies could quite easily be a new Super Gogeta and then the Pycon and Janemba EZAs. Because remember, Vegito is the Dokkan Fest in part 1. So if we do get a new Super Gogeta for part 2, I could definitely see him being the Carnival. And then the last thing we have left is 3 slots for Dragon Ball Super. So Dragon Ball Super, this can obviously be anything from superheroes or super bosses. We know we're getting the new Vegeta, who's going to have a unit super with a Goku. So whilst I don't necessarily expect this, it would be interesting if we did get a new UI Goku. We obviously got the tech one for Tanabata, which wasn't that long ago. So a new UI, it'd have to be the Whitehead UI. I feel like maybe that's a little bit early. A new God Goku, maybe. Obviously, one of the slots we know, again, going back to what we were discussing about the GT Super Saiyan 4s, one of the slots will be taken up by the LR Gods EZA. So that's one of the slots taken straight away. Somebody did recommend something that I think would be kind of cool, is this Vegito being the old like free-to-play LR, the winner of the legendary campaign election thing. Like him getting a Super EZA would certainly be very interesting. But like if we look at the rest of the LRs, like nobody here needs an EZA other than the units that are still like way too recent to get one. And then obviously there's a whole bunch of movies. We've covered the movies. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they could talk about for superhero here. Anything Tournament of Power related, because obviously we're getting the Vegeta. I'm not sure with that's the thing with how sporadic the part 1 picks are, the fact that they're all from different sagas. It makes me wonder how much they would focus on each saga, right? So as we already have a Tournament of Power character, does that mean the other Dragon Ball Super slots will be taken up with like, you know, a Resurrection of F character and then like a Battle of Gods character or a different arc from Super, right? Like a new Goku Black or Zamasu, or like a fusing Goku Black and Zamasu that we still don't have. Because again, we haven't really seen any extreme representation in the anniversary so far. Another big thing for superheroes, of course, or just Dragon Ball Super in general, is Universe 6, which is something someone was mentioning on the stream earlier this morning as well. Like a lot of people have wanted to see a new Kefla. We could get the EZA for the tech Kale and Caulifla that fuse into Kefla. I'm not sure if that's a character that's, well, for me it's definitely not, but not sure that that's a character that is anniversary worthy. But obviously we did see that thing a while back with the new Kefla art that's potentially going to be coming out at some point soon as a unit. So Dragon Ball Super does have some interesting options. As I talked about in the leader skill video, we don't know the condition for Vegeta's unit super. Like if it has to be an Ultra Instinct Goku, then I wouldn't be surprised if we did get a new one of some variety, because we don't have any ones that need EZAs, and the tech one's too recent for sure. If it's a Realm of Gods Goku, then maybe we could get a new God Goku, maybe a Goku that transforms into God Goku, because obviously the last one we got was the Saiyan Day. Oh yeah, he's on Movie Hero, so he's not here. The Saiyan Day one that starts off as God Goku. Of course, a lot of people have wanted to see like the blue Goku that rages against Zamasu and Goku Black as well. So that could be interesting. I think this guy here on the bottom, on like second to bottom row, STR Blue Goku is like the only one that we have from the future arc, but I'm not sure if that's something that is like anniversary worthy, right? So Dragon Ball Super, there's a vast array of options. Not a lot of EZA's when it comes to the LRs, apart from the gods, who of course we already assume are going to get one. So there we go. If we go back to the image and full screen it again. So GT, we've got the EZA for the Super Saiyan 4s. I think that's going to fill that slot. Dragon Ball, like I say, I feel like there's probably going to be the free-to-play LR for the anniversary. Otherwise, it's going to be like the Path to Power Kid Goku EZA potentially. Saiyan Saga, the Goku and Vegeta 7-year LRs, Kaioken and Great Ape as the EZA's. Namek Saga, the Namek Goku and Full Power Frieza. Then for Majin Buu Saga, this one is the one that's more up in the air, but like AGL Super Vegito, Super EZA, In Buhan Super EZA, maybe the AGL Majin Vegeta Super EZA. I do think one of these slots is potentially going to be taken up by the banner unit for the Vegito, although of course we don't know for sure. Android / Cell Saga, a couple of interesting things: Future Gohan and Trunks, Tech Androids, EZA's, a new Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, or the Int Super Saiyan 2 Gohan Super EZA. Then for the movies, I'm hoping for a new Gogeta. I think a Super Gogeta with unique animations would be awesome. And then the Pikkon and Janemba EZA's. And then for the Super, one of them will be the Tech Gods. And then after that, there's quite a lot of different options that are open. So this is probably the one I have the least like solid speculation about. But let me know what you guys think. There is, of course, the AGL Kaioken Goku that could get a Super EZA, who's just named like Blue Goku. Because again, if Vegeta's Unit Super is like a Realm of Gods Goku, then him getting a Super EZA and obviously being on like the Reps of Universe 7 team, that would be very fitting as well. So let me know what you guys think. Who do you think is going to fill up these slots for the releases for the 10th anniversary? Let me know all your thoughts down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.